So we had a really wonderful experience with this class here this semester, and with the School of Geographic Sciences and Urban Planning and the town of Clarkdale. And I am already taking up too much of their time, so I'm going to hand it over to Meagan and Kim to introduce the class to us.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to very quickly say thank you to Project Cities. This has been my second semester working with the program, and I continue to be incredibly impressed and find it to be just such a rich environment for me, but as well as a learning environment for my students. So without further ado, let me quickly introduce what we're doing here today, and then we're going to turn it over to the real stars of the show. So we have been working with the town of Clarkdale this past semester, and actually I should introduce myself first. So my name is Meagan Ehlenz. I'm an assistant professor in the Urban and Environmental Planning program at the School of Geographical Sciences and Urban Planning here at ASU. And so we have, along with my collaborator, Kim Kanuho, we've had the real pleasure this semester of working with 17 graduate students in a class called the Planning Workshop. And this class is designed to satisfy a cumulative experience requirement we have for all of our second-year graduate students in planning. The idea here is that after 2 years of graduate schools, we'd like to see you do something with it. So we give our students the opportunity to take all of the skills and knowledge that they've learned and apply it to a real-world planning program. So we've had the real pleasure of working with the town of Clarkdale through Project Cities to do just that. And we've been working on a set of design guidelines for the community. Part of the planning workshop, the goal here is to test a wide range of skills and to give students really an opportunity to apply a wide range of skills. And so this includes things like existing conditions analysis, public participation, and then formulating recommendations. And at the end of the class, we design a planning document that can actually be put into use by the community. So the goal here is to really have this very professional experience that benefits all of us. So I want to turn this over, as I said, to the real stars of this show, to the students who have produced this work. We have about 40 minutes, and so the plan is that we will present, or the students will present for roughly 30 minutes. We'll have a little bit of time for Q&A, so if you have questions, please put them in that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. But then please join us in the poster session at 11 a.m. where we can spend a little bit more time talking in depth about questions. So I am going to share my screen, and then our students are going to take the reins. All right. Students, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, Satmi, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Professor Ehlenz stated today, I, along with my fellow students, will be presenting the work that we have completed for the town of Clarkdale. Before we begin, I would like to introduce today's presenters and provide an overview of our presentation. My name is Satnai Isaac, and I will begin our presentation by offering an overview of the town of Clarkdale, providing some background of the community, and summarizing the planning process with a focus of our public participation efforts, which provided the foundation for the rest of the plan. Next, you will hear from Beth Freelander, who will introduce one of our two main study areas, that is the downtown. She will highlight some of the major characteristics and describe our recommendations for the study area. Subsequently, Nick Leftwich will talk about our second study area, that is the 89A commercial corridor. And he's going to also include some of the description of the major characteristics of the corridor and our recommendation. And last, we'll be hearing from Guadalupe Ortiz-Cortez, who will show a conceptual rendering that we produced to illustrate how our recommendations could apply to downtown Clarkdale. She will also describe how our plan can be implemented and what the next steps are in the process for the town. At the end of our presentation, as Meagan stated, there will be a brief moment for a Q&A, which there will also be a longer Q&A session at 10:44 as part of the poster session. So before I begin introducing the town of Clarkdale, I do want to spend a moment telling you about our class and the project that we have been working on for the past several months. During spring 2020, our class worked with the town of Clarkdale to create a set of design guidelines that establishes a vision that can guide future development within the town. The design guidelines target two focus areas. The first focus area is the historic downtown that is bounded by 90th Street and 11th Street. This also includes the Arizona Copper Museum, the Town Hall, and Clarkdale's Park. The second focus area is a portion of the State Route 89A that serves as a commercial corridor for the regional Verde Valley. The primary purpose of the design guidelines is to promote Clarkdale's two main business districts as a complementary destination that emphasizes local economic development and that promote Clarkdale's live, work, play identity, while of course preserving its small town character. So today we will be highlighting our planning process and the key recommendations from our design guidelines. So we'll start by who is Clarkdale. Clarkdale is a town that is situated in the north central part of Arizona. The Verde River flows through the town and it is also home to the Tuzagut National Monument. It is 10.1 square miles with a semi-desert environment and was founded in 1912 as a mining town. It is renowned as the first master planned community in Arizona and included all parts found in a town, such as upper and lower income housing, recreational areas, commercial areas, and schools. Due to changes in the economy, however, mining and production came to a halt in 1953. As of July 1st, 2019, the population stands at 4,494 with a 1% growth rate between the year 2010 and 2018. Today, there are many sites on the National Register of Historic Places, and Clarkdale has the advantage of having great views, positioning with neighboring towns, and a backstory that can drive the economic development the way residents see fit. So on this slides, I'm gonna do a brief overview of the demographics. Clarkdale is predominantly white community and the median age is 59. The chart on the left shows the educational attainment for residents over the age of 25. As you can see here, there's a variety of educational attainment with the majority completing at least some form of college. In regards to employment, the chart on the right shows the majority of the employment falls under the management and business sector. This is followed by the service, sales, and office occupations. According to the 2017 US Census, 14% of the population fall under the poverty line, with majority of the older population being below that poverty line. So for the slide 7 is the planning process. As part of the planning process, the planning workshop incorporated a multi-phased public participation approach with the goal of collecting input from the town staff and key community stakeholders. Our public participation strategy included 3 events which are shown on the slide. These community input sessions included a virtual kickoff meeting and an all-day site visit and a stakeholders meeting. Finally, our 4th event is today, where we report back what we learned and offer our recommendations for the town. Slide 8. The first phase of the public participation was meeting with the town staff to review the project scope and identify the key community priorities and discuss other opportunities and/or challenges for the project. During the kickoff meeting, Clarkdale identified some of the key objectives for the project overall, including to improve the quality of life for the residents, while also appealing to regional tourism demands, to create unique economic development opportunities and avoid the redundancy with the neighboring communities in the valley, and to create and to incorporate sustainability and the town's historic and cultural identity throughout the project as guiding visions for any future developments. Following the virtual kickoff meeting, the planning workshop reviewed a number of existing plans and documents that were provided by the town staff, in addition to collecting the data about the existing conditions of the community. The second phase was the public participation, and the public participation process included an all-day site visit with a brainstorming session with the key town staff that was held in late January. We met with several town staff members, including the town manager, the community development director, the public work director, and additional staff from these departments. The broad purpose of this site visit was to offer an opportunity for collaboration and a community-led data gathering about Clarkdale's history, existing conditions, and potential opportunities. During the site visit, we documented key information about the existing conditions, opportunities, and challenges, including pictures and maps produced collaboratively with the town staff. The information served as a foundation for both of our existing document analysis and our recommendations. The third phase of the public participation process is a stakeholders meeting. So at first we had a mid-project update meeting with the town staff, and then an invited stakeholders meeting to generate community priorities for the downtown district and the 89A commercial corridor. The town staff identified to us the key stakeholders within both study areas and provided the planning workshop with the contact information. Subsequently, the planning workshop sent email invitations for the event, which was held on a Friday evening in February at the Clarkdale Clubhouse Memorial Clubhouse. Beyond the planning process, which included the ASU students and the ASU staff, and then the town staff, 28 stakeholders attended the meeting. For the meeting, the primary goal was to collect information about community preferences within the downtown district and the 89A commercial area corridor, and facilitate focused discussions to identify the key priorities, visions, and perceived challenges for the study areas. The meeting agenda also included several ways for the stakeholders to participate in and offer input. This includes an introductory presentation where we reported back our early findings and existing conditions about Clarkdale's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. This was followed by a visual preference survey that enabled the stakeholders to vote for their preferences on a wide range of issues and visions for downtown district and the 89A commercial corridor. And the third was a series of small breakout discussions that gathered detailed feedback about stakeholders' preferences and priorities and visions for the downtown district and the 89A commercial corridor. And then there was also 2 modes of reflective feedback from the stakeholders that asked them to write remaining thoughts and comments on a post-meeting survey and the public comment cards. So now I want to spend a few minutes talking more about some of these methods, since the community input we collected is the heart of our recommendations. So as I mentioned earlier, for the visual preference survey, it allowed the community members to vote on various images based on how well they represented their visions for the 2 study areas. At the end of the visual preference survey, we analyzed the results and reported them back to the community in real time with the smaller discussion tables. This tool provides a strategy to collect consensus and discuss the differences in visions for the 2 study areas. So the images below are example of the questions we asked the stakeholders to vote on. Based on these 3 images, we asked which streetscape best represents your vision for 89A. The stakeholders voted through their cell phones, and we reported back the result that is shown on the graph to the right. As you can see here, majority voted for B, and image C wasn't too far behind. For the small group breakout discussions, after the visual preference survey, we asked the stakeholders to join us on breakout tables so that where we could facilitate smaller group discussions about a range of issues. We had 4 different discussion tables, and each one talked about 3 major topics. The first topic was the visual preference survey. As I mentioned earlier, we showed the community members the results of their voting and asked them several questions, allowing them to describe why they chose one image over the other. The second and the third topic focused on the 2 study areas. In both discussions, we asked participants to talk about their vision of the 2 areas. This included what the area should look like in the future, what uses belong or don't belong in the area, and who should be served in the 2 areas, the residents and or the tourists. Collectively, the discussions were very successful, and it allowed us to ensure that our recommendations were aligned with the community identified priorities and values. So this slide is a table of contents. Before I turn the presentation to my colleague Beth, I do want to give you a sense of the final plan document that we have created for Clarkdale. Using all the information we gathered this semester, we have written a set of design guidelines for downtown Clarkdale and 89A commercial corridor. On the screen, I'm showing you the table of content for the plan, including an analysis of existing conditions, that is chapter 2, a review of best practices and community examples, that's chapter 4, design principles and guidelines for each study areas, and that would be chapter 5 and 6, and a conclusion chapter including implementation and the next steps for Clarkdale, which is chapter 7. Now I will pass on the presentation to Beth, who will talk more about our recommendation for downtown Clarkdale.
Thank you, Fatih. Next slide. Here is a map of the downtown district. Clarkdale's downtown is located along Main Street, starting with the parcels on the east side of 9th Street and ending at 11th Street. Next. Downtown Clarkdale hosts many of Clarkdale's historic buildings and features, making it architecturally distinct from other Verde Valley towns. It embodies the small town charm in look and feel. The district is walkable, has wonderful open space, has several great local businesses, and is home to the town hall and the Copper Museum. Next. However, there are some vacant buildings and lots which have the potential to contribute to downtown's vibrancy if developed. Currently, their vacancy represents a strain on the downtown. Downtown is off the beaten path, so to speak, so it doesn't benefit from through traffic like other towns in the region. But numerous tourist attractions, including the Verde River, several annual festivals and events, and the Verde Canyon Railroad give Clarkdale the opportunity to harness some of the economic activity of tourists in the downtown. Next. Here you can see how the design principles and guidelines interact. Basically, the principles are the overall vision and priorities for the area. They inform the design guidelines. The guidelines are specific recommendations that can be used to evaluate proposed projects. Next. Based on our conversation with Clarkdale representatives and stakeholders, these principles were established. These principles reflect Clarkdale's values and align with their priorities for the downtown. I'll go into a little bit more detail on each, and then I'll show you a few examples of our design guidelines and explain how they align with these principles. Next. Clarkdale has a unique history as the first planned community in Arizona, which should be celebrated. Clarkdale has done an exceptional job preserving its historic buildings and characteristics. Continuing to preserve these assets builds up Clarkdale's strengths and helps retain its small town charm. Clarkdale has already begun using its historic assets and unique history to attract tourism through the Historic Homes Tour, the bank robbery reenactment, and the Verde Canyon Railroad. Maintaining and promoting these assets will help Clarkdale attract more tourism to the downtown, and this will fuel some needed economic growth in the area. For these reasons, historic preservation is considered a key principle for our design guidelines. Next. Clarkdale is one of few towns home to the only free-flowing river in Arizona, the Verde River, which is a true source of pride. Additionally, Clarkdale has been a leader in sustainability in Arizona through their Dark Skies initiative, solar energy efforts, and water conservation techniques. Sustainability is clearly an important ideal for Clarkdale residents. Next. Clarkdale was founded as a planned community for a company town. The founder wanted employees at all levels to be able to live, work, and play in Clarkdale. We hope to create guidelines that would embody this spirit. In making our design guidelines, we kept the vision of a downtown district that can meet a range of resident needs at the forefront of our minds. Next. For each piece of live, work, play, we identified elements relevant for the downtown. To promote living in downtown and Clarkdale at large, more attainable housing is needed. Additionally, downtown could play a role in serving residents' needs. The work aspect of live, work, play lends itself to economic considerations. Downtown should be a supportive business environment, and growth of the tourism industry downtown would support the Main Street economy. The work category would not be complete without consideration of job opportunities as well. Downtown already contains many opportunities for play, including restaurants, the lounge, a museum, a park, events, and a kayak rental company. Sustaining these while cultivating new entertainment and recreation options will help downtown flourish into a hub of activity. Next. Economic resilience is especially important for small towns. Clarkdale should work towards economic resiliency through maintaining infrastructure, encouraging complementary developments, and fostering businesses that can survive on resident support while thriving with tourism growth. Next. Our guidelines covered many topics, which are listed here, but for the sake of time, I'll be highlighting two guidelines: desired uses and alleys. We incorporated both recommendations and non-recommendations, but today I'll focus just on the recommendations. Overall, for desired uses, we recommend a balanced, mixed-use downtown that includes historic uses when appropriate. Next. Restoring historic buildings like Clarkdale's Historic Theater, shown here, to their former use is one way our desired use guidelines promote historic preservation. Next. Our guidelines also promote mixed-use buildings. Clarkdale's new boutique hotel and brewery is one example of mixed use that already exists in Clarkdale's downtown and is highlighted here. Next. We especially recommend buildings with retail on the bottom and residential on the top, like the other images shown here. These are in line with traditional mixed-use buildings in historic small towns. This style of building also fits with live, work, play by pairing work opportunities with live opportunities. It also strengthens Clarkdale's ability to provide housing that is attainable for a wider range of people which is an underlying goal of Live, Work, Play. Increasing the number of residents living downtown will also increase the number of people who regularly support downtown local businesses. Overall, encouraging a mix of uses in the district will allow for more possibilities for development, which will likely lead to more job opportunities, demonstrating another element of Live, Work, Play. Mixing uses and encouraging complementary uses supports symbiotic relationships between businesses. So when one business prospers, surrounding businesses benefit as well, which supports economic resilience. Balancing businesses catering to residents and tourists also contributes to Live, Work, Play by making it more likely that residents will be able to fulfill their needs in the downtown. It also contributes to economic resilience because a balance of businesses that cater to different consumers can help the downtown weather economic shifts that negatively impact certain consumers or industries. Next. Now I'll walk us through our recommendations for the downtown alley. Overall, the guidelines seek to better incorporate the alley space as part of the downtown public realm and make it a more welcoming space for pedestrians without sacrificing the alley's vital functions for businesses. Next. Here you can see the alley as it exists today. By activating the alley, Clarkdale can showcase the whole historic building instead of just the front facade. Next. Screening dumpsters makes the alley more aesthetically pleasing, which encourages pedestrian use. It also discourages non-business dumpster use that may cause waste to accumulate around the dumpster, making it a more environmentally friendly option. Finally, this technique preserves an important function of the alley for businesses, contributing to economic resilience. Next. Permeable surfaces reduce wasteful and harmful water runoff and do not contribute to heat islands, which align well with the sustainability principle. Adequate paving also increases the walkability of the alley. Next. Alley access to historic buildings can increase the connections between potential consumers and businesses, adding to the appeal of redeveloping and preserving these historic buildings. Clarkdale's alley already has some business access points that could potentially serve customers, as highlighted here. Next. Protecting the utility of the alley for local businesses preserves the alley's historic function and keeps the main street free of delivery trucks blocking needed customer parking. Next. Lighting, art, and signage enhance the pedestrian realm, making it more likely that people will want to walk or bike in the downtown rather than drive. Murals can be used to display a piece of Clarkdale's story, reinforcing the connection between historic buildings and Clarkdale's history. These features add value to the businesses downtown by facilitating more pedestrian activity and encouraging visitors to stay longer and explore the downtown. Alley design and themes can contribute to an overall branding effort for the downtown, which in turn can be used to attract tourists. And finally, the pleasant pedestrian-friendly atmosphere can enhance the quality of life, and art installations can become another source of pride in the downtown. Next. Now I'll turn it over to Nick to discuss the recommendations and principles for the 89A corridor.
Thank you, Beth. This next part of the presentation deals with the State Route 89A commercial corridor and the guiding principles and design guidelines that will help the town of Clarkdale effectively develop this space into a meaningful district that promotes the Clarkdale brand and serves the town's needs. Next slide. Arizona State Route 89A is part of a much larger commercial corridor stretching from Prescott to Flagstaff and serves as the major thoroughfare for many of the local towns in the Verde Valley, including Clarkdale and Cottonwood. Primarily vacant within Clarkdale, this corridor currently has some basic commercial features such as the Dollar General and the No. 1 food store. There's additional features such as the Valley View Cemetery and the Clarkdale Baptist Church. Next slide. As part of our recommendations, we have identified this section of the 89A corridor as a key opportunity area for Clarkdale to develop due to the available infrastructure, the readiness of the land, and the potential for local partnerships. Next slide. Our team conducted a site visit of this area during January of this year and identified several strengths and weaknesses with the help of town staff. In our analysis, we saw that this is a high traffic corridor blessed with a beautiful natural landscape, connecting the different parts of Clarkdale together with the rest of the Verde Valley, but also that in several areas it lacked critical infrastructure along certain stretches of the road. Some parcels are graded such that they would be difficult to develop. However, with all this, we saw prime opportunities in the available space for Clarkdale to develop and generate economic growth. In many ways, the open land was a good thing, as it will allow the town of Clarkdale to focus future development in a way that best suits the needs of the town, such as addressing the need for attainable housing. Next slide. As the primary lenses through which this focus is to be directed, we have developed these 5 character principles for the 89A corridor. Some of the principles are shared with the downtown in order to maintain a consistent identity throughout the town, but each of these principles are tailored in a different way for the different spaces. The 5 principles for the 89A are small town preservation, creating a live, work, play community, supporting sustainable practices, mixed-use economic development, and focusing on slow tourism over flashy attractions. I will elaborate further on 3 of these to provide examples of how they shape our character guidelines. Next slide. The principle of small town preservation prioritizes preserving the town's identity and history in order to maintain its close-knit community, while providing residents with needed resources all the same. Clarkdale takes pride in its welcoming community, and this is an important part of the town's branding. This principle is especially important to account for within the 89A corridor, because as a blank slate, it is very susceptible to generic commercial developments that could detract from Clarkdale's small town feel. This principle guides both design guidelines and the desired use recommendations in a way that allows for new growth and expansion, but in a way that retains the endearing elements of Clarkdale's small town feel. Next slide. The principle of mixed-use economic development prioritizes the incorporation of mixed-use developments within the 89A corridor. As Clarkdale needs both affordable housing options and more commercial developments to grow its tax base, this principle incorporates the implementation of workforce housing among the commercial developments in order to provide an affordable and attainable housing option for Clarkdale residents that supports local businesses. This in turn provides a strong economic base in this area and generates further economic growth through the interaction with people and businesses. Next slide. The principle of slow tourism prioritizes the development of the 89A corridor as a quiet tourism corridor that connects the different areas of Clarkdale and the Verde Valley with the town's unique history and distinct natural landscape. In order to support the other goals of sustainability, live, work, play community, and small town preservation, this principle prioritizes utilizing natural resources, such as the Verde Valley, as Clarkdale's central tourist opportunities, while establishing a small tourism network within the different towns of the Verde Valley community. Next slide. In order to further these goals and the goals of the central principles of the 89A corridor, our team has also developed guidelines that offer detailed recommendations for design and planning techniques that can be utilized here. Elements such as facades and streetscapes can set the tone and feeling for the area, changing the way people interact with the built environment, while land use types and parking regulations can impact the way sites are laid out. However, while all of these aspects are important, we will highlight just 2 of these categories here today, namely the desired uses and the landscaping categories. Next slide. Land use control through zoning is one of the most powerful urban planning tools in shaping the development of an area. And in consideration for Clarkdale's different needs and opportunities present, our analysis of different potential land uses has determined the most desirable land uses for the 89A corridor. Next slide. The first land use recommendation is to incorporate the practice of mixed-use development along the 89A corridor. While we do not want to consign one of Clarkdale's only commercially zoned districts to be a residential neighborhood, by including residential spaces within and above commercial spaces, the town can both meet its housing and commercial needs and create an economically diverse and vibrant space. Next slide. A subsequent land use recommendation is to develop the residential components within this mixed use area as attainable housing options. Low to mid density multifamily housing products, such as apartments above retail or office spaces, should be implemented throughout the corridor as a way to provide needed, attainable, and affordable housing options for Clarkdale's working class, and position them near employment opportunities. Next slide. The commercial uses desired in the 89A corridor are those that fill in the current retail and service gaps. Residents of Clarkdale are missing in-town access to services such as grocery stores that serve fresh goods, banks, and pharmacies. This forces residents and their tax revenue to leave Clarkdale for Cottonwood or other towns in the surrounding area, weakening Clarkdale's local economic base of the town. Developing a neighborhood grocery store within this corridor would both immediately serve the needs of Clarkdale's residents and generate important sales tax revenue for the town. Furthermore, entertainment options such as movie theaters, bowling alleys, or other similarly structured entertainment options are notably absent throughout the entire Verde Valley, and these are highly demanded by residents, both here and in the neighboring towns. The introduction of entertainment opportunities here in the 89A corridor of this type would become an attractive feature that serves both residents and guests alike. Next slide. The other design guideline category highlighted here is a set of landscaping recommendations that intend to increase the quality of life, maintain the natural and beautiful image of Clarkdale, and promote sustainable practices in harmony with Clarkdale's goals. Next slide. The first recommendation of this type is xeriscape landscaping, which means the use of native desert plants, shrubs, and trees that only require minimal watering and maintenance. This should be a standard practice along the 89A corridor. The practice maintains the current character of Clarkdale and enhances the natural desert features of the region through harmony. Xeriscape landscaping cuts cost and is more resilient and environmentally friendly than other landscaping processes that are often implemented. It saves water and promotes sustainability. Next slide. The landscaping can be designed to integrate with the streetscape and can be used to promote safety, such as by focusing eyes on the street through the way it is positioned. By incorporating the abundance of natural features found throughout the corridor into public spaces, such as in parking lots and in shopping centers, these features can form an asset that strengthens the space and inspires social cohesion. There's many trails in the area, and by incorporating these into the local area and into the walkway and streetscape, this can become a wonderful area that brings together the natural beauty of Clarkdale and gives people access to those recreational opportunities. Next slide. An important aspect of landscape integration is the provision of shade. Shade should be an important aspect of landscaping along the corridor as it promotes pedestrian movement and helps plants to survive. Creating natural or artificial shade structures that provide relief from the heat increases guest comfort, allowing them to enjoy the outdoors for a longer period of time, as I'm sure we all know, living here in Arizona. In the end, we believe that the incorporation of these and other guidelines will help the 89A corridor become an active public space that captures the essence of Clarkdale and introduces visitors to the beautiful Clarkdale brand. And we hope that these recommendations are helpful in the creation of the town's official design standards. From here on, my associate Guadalupe will continue with an overview of our conceptual renderings and the next steps.
Thank you, Nick. Next, I'll be showing you a rendering we're working on for downtown Clarkdale. We're still working on this illustration, like I said, but it is an example of what the design elements could look like in downtown. In the illustration, we can see that streets have been activated by using the wide sidewalks and adding movable street furniture to encourage residents and visitors to sit down and engage with friends and neighbors. Restaurants and shops can also use the sidewalks for outdoor sitting or other activities to continue to encourage more activity on the street. A bicycle lane separate from the sidewalk and road allows for safe multimodal transportation for drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians alike. The historic buildings are preserved, including the exposed brick exterior facade and the historical color and ornamentation. The storefronts have eyes on the street pedestrian-friendly design with large windows facing the street. There are low maintenance, low water usage native trees and plants on the street that can provide shade and improve the aesthetics of the street. Business awnings can also provide shade for pedestrians as they walk through Main Street or sit outside.
Lupe, real quickly, this is your 5-minute.
Thanks. Next, please. I will wrap up our presentation by discussing how the town of Clarkdale can use the design guidelines and strategies that can be used to implement them. As stated earlier, the character design guidelines were created based on the input we received from stakeholders. The design guidelines promote the preservation of the small town character and feel, efficient and sustainable growth patterns, attainable housing options, and a strong, diverse, and local economy. Next. It is important to note that this plan is a living document. It is dynamic and should be updated continuously as the community's needs change. The design guidelines are intended to aid Clarkdale staff, the town council, and the planning commission as they update the general plan. It can also help update policies and regulations to help implement the guidelines and create the vision Clarkdale residents have imagined. Developers should also use the guidelines and incorporate them on their development plans to ensure that their proposed developments are in line with the town's vision. The design guidelines should then be used by Clarkdale's Design Review Board to assess these developments based on the needs of the community and the vision the town has for the future. Next. At the end of each focus area chapter, we included tools Clarkdale staff can use to implement the design guidelines and encourage economic growth in downtown and the 89A commercial corridor. These tools include policies, regulations, programs, and partnerships. Policies to help foster development and achieve other goals include incentives such as permit fee reductions or waivers, and an accelerated permitting process to encourage developers to invest in new and infill development in town. Regulations or enforced rules include zoning for multi-story and mixed-use developments to encourage economic growth while also providing housing options. Another method to promote mixed-use developments along the 89A corridor is through planned unit developments. By creating a development of compatible land uses such as residential, recreational, and commercial uses within a larger contained development. Also, programs that provide entrepreneurs with the financial and technical assistance they need will promote a strong local economy. These programs include those that provide financial capital through loans and grants, and a small business incubator program that can provide local entrepreneurs with needed resources and services to help them get started throughout the first critical years of the business's life. Partnerships between companies and organizations to collaborate to achieve a common goal are also encouraged. For instance, a partnership with the Geographic College and professors and students of the college to create a small business incubator program would warrant that this program will be a success for the town and region. We also encourage continued collaboration with organizations like the Verde Valley Regional Economic Organization and Local First Arizona. These organizations provide access to resources for business creation and retention. And for 89A specifically, close communication and collaboration with the Department of Transportation will help ensure that that corridor will thrive. Next.
In 2 minutes.
Thanks, Steve. The Character Design Guidelines document was created in support of the 2012 General Plan. Chapter 11 of the General Plan called for the development of character design guidelines to discourage sprawl, encourage infill development, promote sustainable development, highlight the town's history, and strengthen the local economy. The Character Design Guidelines also support other existing plans, such as the Central Business District Focus Area Plan, the Arts and Entertainment District, the 89A Focus Area Plan, and also the 89A Commercial Overlay District. We hope that the research and best practices we have included in the Character Design Guidelines help Clarkdale as they update and create new plans to help shape the town's future. Thank you for joining us during our presentation.
Awesome. Wow. Well, folks, that was really insightful. Thank you so much for giving us that. Oh, I don't have my video on. Sorry. Video conference faux pas number like 15 of the day, I think. I'd like to call Tracie, Hlavinka, and Ruth Mayday. I'm going to promote you to panelists real quick. And let's turn it over to you for just kind of some initial thoughts, maybe a question if you have one as well, and for the students.
Well, first of all, they did a fabulous job providing all this information. You really encapsulated some of the things that the town staff has been saying, and taking the time to do the stakeholders and grabbing all of that and putting it into one document is phenomenal. I do have two questions. One, the students during the presentation, the downtown rendering, it noted that there was a bicycle lane up against the curb. And I want to know, is that a recommendation? We have parallel parking there now. So is the recommendation that we remove the parking that is in the front there and make that a bike lane?
I can answer that. So I think for the conceptual rendering, what we really wanted to show was that the downtown would be a really pleasant and welcoming atmosphere across modes. We didn't make a specific recommendation to put a bike lane in, but we would like to see the downtown support cycling.
Awesome, because that's something that is actually on our strategic work plan that we're trying to accomplish in the very near future. My second question is that, did you incorporate, there were, at the beginning of this presentation, there was some information about the stakeholder meeting. And from what I can recall, you incorporated a lot of that consensus from the stakeholders into this presentation. False to assume anything. So is that correct, that you took those stakeholders' comments and things that came out of that meeting and implemented some of those design tactics?
Yes.
Awesome.
If I might, Tracie, first of all, I want to thank the students. You guys have done an outstanding job. This is a document that is long overdue. As you and I don't know how many of the viewers know, we're in the process of rewriting our general plan, and this provides a lot of foundational research that the staff just does not have the time or the capacity to do right now. So we really, really appreciate the hard work and the degree to which you guys have committed yourselves to this project. It's outstanding. Someone had asked about how we identified stakeholders. So we included all of the boards and commission members for all of the boards and commissions we had as part of the town. We included the council, obviously. We also reached out to all the property owners in the downtown area and also along 89A. And then we basically just put out a call and said, we're redoing general plan. Who's interested in participating? So we did get a lot of positive feedback from stakeholders regarding that. So that's basically how we compiled the list. We just started with everybody that we knew, everybody that we could possibly think of that might be interested in participating. And we were thrilled that we got the response we did on a Friday night. So
great. Yeah, and I was there. My goodness, that was an incredible event.
it was.
It can be pulling teeth to get people to show up to a public meeting, and we had standing room. It was pretty fantastic.
And it speaks well to the community that they are this involved and this committed to moving Clarkdale forward.
Absolutely.